dramatic rescue of Space Kid running away from a strangely incompetent NASA and a crop duster you don't know how to pilot. You can't make this shit up. Look, I'm not gonna lie and pretend to be some edgy macho man and bash anything that's sentimental. I appreciate films that allow me to let out my emotions. It actually feels kinda good. Titanic, for example, is my #1 favorite movie, and I cry like a 9-year-old girl every time I see it. I must have seen it like 35 times. However, that masterpiece of cinema was cooked properly with every ingredient that makes a perfect film. Every self-respecting film lover knows that saccharinity on its own does not constitute greatness. And of course, every self-respecting director and screenwriter knows that pandering to a crowd more susceptible to emotional manipulation and less likely to ignore storytelling flaws is a definite no-no. So NASA sends its first batch of astronauts to Mars on its first ever long-term colonial mission. 2 months into the journey, Sarah Elliott, the commander of the mission, finds out she's pregnant. The decision is made to have the baby named Gardner on the Red Planet. The president of the mission, Nathaniel Shepard, played by Gary Oldman, keeps this story hidden from the public. Of course, that means the kid's body will adapt to Mars' atmosphere and gravity, and thus won't really be able to survive on Earth. Also, Sarah dies while giving birth to Gardner, so that means the astronauts will be raising him. So 16 years later, Gardner, played by Asa Butterfield, is a super smart dude without much social skills going on. It's also during this time that NASA thinks it would be a good idea to bring Gardner down to Earth because of his intelligence. So some surgery is performed and a lot of training is done in preparation for Earth's atmosphere. Gardner's got some other plans, though. Having grown disconnected from the astronauts and longing for a life on Earth, Gardner runs off to meet with Tulsa, played by Britt Robertson, who's a troubled girl who he was friends with online while he was on Mars. And he also wishes to find the father that he never had. First off, I'm gonna start with what I liked about this film. Visually, I thought it was pretty gorgeous. From the red barren landscapes of Mars to the vivid grandeur of Earth's nature, a clear distinction was made between the two worlds. Which obviously was necessary to put ourselves in Gardner's shoes and generate a feeling of awe as if we're seeing these wonders for the first time. I thought Britt Robertson and Asa Butterfield performed rather well and had some decent chemistry going on, which made the relationship feel a bit more believable. Surprisingly, I didn't find that aspect of the film to be a chore to watch. Now on to what I didn't like, which is a shitload. For a start, the film makes no effort to give us something meaningful with its premise. Any opportunity to do so takes a backseat to the relationship, which is the film's main priority. While the relationship had its highlights here and there, in the end it was just shallow, by-the-numbers teen fodder and saccharine to the point where I was surprised I didn't fall into a diabetic coma just looking at it. And a few times throughout the film, Gardner asks people he meets on Earth what their favorite thing about the planet is, and they don't really do that much either. If this was an attempt to make us think more about the things on Earth that Gardner finds awe-inspiring, which we take for granted, it's not a very good one. But what really pissed me off was the absurdities in the plot. Whether it was for the sake of comedy, sentimentality, or moving the plot forward, the story was just ridden with nonsense. You're telling me that this ultra-intelligent kid, even though he's lived on Mars with a bunch of astronauts, has absolutely no idea at all to the basics of interacting with a girl? Didn't his surrogate mother Kendra teach him anything at all? You're telling me that in 16 years the only idea he had about this sort of thing was from some old movies he watched? This guy's educated in the most sophisticated of scientific work, yet he freaks out when he sees a horse? How is it that only after a few hours on Earth he actually manages to outsmart and outrun NASA? Are they really that incompetent? Gardner's smart or naive only at the moments where the script tells him to be that. There are also some elements of the plot that are just rushed and undercooked, including Gary Oldman's arc, which means the revelations at the end of the third act have absolutely no effect at all. So while there are some good performances, lush cinematography, decent chemistry, and the fact that the film wasn't exactly boring, the failure to do anything with the film's interesting premise, not to mention that the fact is completely nonsensical, makes this film a gigantic disappointment. The target audience might enjoy it, sure, but adults are just gonna be left out in the cold. So I'm gonna give The Space Between Us a 5. So these are my thoughts on The Space Between Us. What did you think of the film? Let me know in the comment section below. Now if you'll excuse me, the Mayhem concert is tonight. And if you like what I do, give me a like, hit that big subscribe button, stay tuned, and I will see you on the next one.